Good morning, Eddie. Firstly, can we get your reaction, please, to the draw for the semi-finals of the League Cup? You'll play Arsenal.
Yeah, I think we were guaranteed a tough game, whoever we got. I watched it with interest last night. I thought the game beforehand was an unbelievable game to watch. So I think whenever you get to this stage of the competition, you know the quality of the teams is very high. And yeah, we play Arsenal, and I think we've had some good games against them in the last couple of years, so we'll look forward to that.
Still a few weeks until you play the first leg, and then the second leg's a month later. But that second leg to be at St James's Park, if you could have chosen, you probably would have it that way, wouldn't you, to be at home second?
I think you probably would, yeah. I don't think there's a whole lot in it, but I think that probably would have been our preference. But I think any game against Arsenal is difficult, home or away. But as I said, we've had some really good competitive games. I think they've been really tight. So I think that's something on the horizon for us to really look forward to. I think we're all excited by that. Those two games, quite unique that they're separated so far apart. But they're sort of now in the background of my mind. The focus very, very quickly, as I said, after the game against Brentford is on Ipswich. And we've prepared the game and we're looking forward to it.
Joe Linton is suspended this weekend, but he was substituted the other night after picking up a couple of facial injuries or wounds. Can you tell us how he is and has he recovered from them?
Yeah, he's okay. He's a little bit battered and bruised yesterday. He had a few stitches, I believe, sort of in his ear or around the area of the ear, which was quite delicate. So yeah, he had a cut mouth. So I think probably with him not being available this weekend is probably a good thing for him because it allows him to rest those bruises and wounds and then hopefully be fully fit for the week after.
It's been a good week for you, hasn't it? At home, 7 goals, 2 victories. You'd be looking to take that into Ipswich this weekend. Do you feel like momentum could be building now and you starting to put a run together, which is something, unfortunately, you haven't done often enough this season? Yeah,
we hope so. I think very good feeling around the team at the moment, not just with the 2 games, but I think even Brentford was a blip within that. But going back behind those games, I think we've actually performed very well. So I'd like to think we're building some momentum, but proof will be in what we deliver on Saturday. We know Portman Road, Ipswich, difficult game, really competitive team. I think Kieran's done an unbelievable job there, and they've been even the games they've lost this season, they've been in all those games, very tight matches, very competitive team, as I say. So we're going to have to be hyper alert. We're going to have to be ready for the match.
Their 2 victories in the Premier League, Ipswich, have both been away from home, and you'll have taken teams to Portman Road before. Obviously, they've had some tough matches, but maybe with the backing they get, it's perhaps a surprise it's taken so long, and you'll be wary of that because it will be so meaningful and significant for them to get that first home win this weekend.
Yeah, I'm sure from their perspective that's what they're chasing, and I think when I've reviewed and looked back at their home games, they've been very good there, and that's no surprise. I think coming into the Premier League, I watched them a lot in the Championship last year. Their home form was outstanding. So you look back at their last league game against Bournemouth, where they're leading for so long in the game, and then Bournemouth come back right at the end, as they've done a few times this season, and take the game. It was hard on them, but that is the quality of the Premier League, and I'm sure they'll be focused. They've had a week to prepare. We've had a shorter time, but back the players to be ready.
Just want to ask you lastly about the schedule over the next few days, because you've got to travel, you've got the match, and then there are more games coming up over the Christmas period. What about training, though, for the players? Will they get time off over Christmas and Christmas Day, possibly?
No, we'll be in on Christmas Day. I think the game takes priority and we have to prepare in the right way. So I think the players expect that now. I don't think there's any thought that they're going to get Christmas Day off. So no, I think it's an intense schedule for the players. Don't think there's been any change there. I think we've always, when you're in this industry, you know that the Christmas period is slightly different for us. But we enjoy it, and I think the games around Christmas do have a unique atmosphere. They have a special feel to them. Hopefully they'll continue to have a special feel because we'll get some good results, and that's the plan. But a busy period coming up now with the 2 cup games sandwiched in between, a busy run of league and cup with the FA Cup coming up. So we're looking forward to the games.
Thanks, Reza. Andy? Well, Neddy, confidence has been a word that's been mentioned quite a lot in these press conferences over the last couple of weeks. After the results of the last week, where's it at percentage-wise, would you say, within the team right now? If you can even put a percentage on it.
I've never done it before. I'll give it a go for you. I'd say it's building, definitely. I think we're human beings. I think there has been a slight, at times in certain games, confidence issues. But I think you've seen a really good feeling within the team in the last 2 performances. And as I say, I'd probably say 3 out of the last 4 have been really, really strong, as we've seen this season. Hopefully that's a good sign. I think we're scoring goals again, which is such a confidence builder. 3 goals again the other night, and possibly could have scored more goals from different areas of the pitch, which we haven't had this season really. We've always had that historically, goals from everywhere. I think it's a really important aspect, and it was great to see Sandro pop up with 2 massive goals for us. Because I think if you believe you can score goals from a number of sources, areas of the team, that naturally lifts how you feel about yourself.
Yeah, I was on the Metro come back from Brentford game, and as ever, there's a few fans analysing it and saying what they liked about the performance, and naturally the mood's high. So I thought I'd ask you, what's kind of pleased you most in the last 2 performances? I imagine it is the fact that Newcastle are back amongst the goals again.
Yeah, I think always a combination of things, because you need to be solid defensively. I think up until the last 10 minutes against Brentford, we were really solid. Thought we looked defensively secure. Last 10 minutes wasn't great. But yeah, I think we've had a number of shots in the last few games. We went through a couple of games where it was well documented we weren't creative enough. So to see our attacking players look like they're enjoying themselves and playing with freedom, playing with that. You need to play within a structure, but you need to give the players obviously freedom to express themselves, and they look like they've got that balance right at the moment, and they're high quality players, so I've got no doubt. If we can get the ball to our attacking players in the right positions, they can create for us.
You mentioned Sandro Tonali there. I think it was his second goal, the celebration. He was kind of surrounded by the other players, and I've never seen it before where the players, the whole team surround him and start kind of singing his terrace chants in the manner that they did. Have you ever seen that before as a manager? Most importantly, what does that say about in what high esteem Sandro is held amongst his teammates?
I wasn't aware of what they were doing, to be honest. I haven't seen it, so I don't know. Unless you're in that celebration, I'm not sure you can actually guarantee what they're doing. But I think anything that makes the player in that moment feel special and important is a great thing. And I think you can see, I often say to the players, you can tell a lot from a celebration of a goal. You can tell a lot by the harmony of the group, the spirit of the group. I love to see the players celebrate together. I love to see the whole team together and share that moment with whoever scores or whoever assists. Because I think you need that feeling connection between the players. You need to have that feeling that whoever's scored or taking the acclaim in that moment, you're doing it together and you're trying to lift each other higher. I think that's such an important part of a team's identity.
We talk about Ipswich and we talk about the fact there's been no win at home for them this season, but like you said, they've been pretty impressive under Kieran McKenna. So, you know, he's a young British manager. For yourself as a youngish British manager, I suppose, how highly would you rate Kieran?
Yeah, very, very high. I think I had the pleasure of meeting him a few times over the years, and I think he's, first of all, he's a really good, down-to-earth guy. Obviously, it goes without saying, he's a top manager. You know, what he's done, coach, what he's done with Ipswich is incredible. Dramatic, steep rise, going through the leagues with near enough the same group of players speaks volumes for his abilities to develop players and get the best out of each and every one of them. You know, there will be a really tough game for us. We have to be ready for what they're going to bring to us, and we have to bring our A game to them.
Just finally, you mentioned Joe Linton. How else are Newcastle looking? I imagine after 2 games this week, fatigue's going to be an issue as well in terms of team selection tomorrow.
Yeah, I think there's some tired bodies, but I think refreshingly energetic because the results have been good, and I think that does change sort of how you feel about your body. So yeah, we'll speak to the players today. We'll make assessments on where everyone looks and then try and pick the right team.
Thanks, Andy. Nisha?
Morning, Eddie.
Hi, Nisha.
After the game on Wednesday, Dan Burns spoke about how calm Sandro Tonali is, how he doesn't get too high, he doesn't get too low. Wednesday probably the biggest high he's had at the club. How do you expect him to respond? Does he just go back to normal, back to training mode? How do you think he'll react?
Yeah, I'd say Dan's right in the respect that he doesn't necessarily outwardly show massive changes of emotions. I think that's a real strength for a player, because I think it's very easy to get really drawn to the contrasting emotions that you can face as a player. It's never always good or always bad, and you need to be able to take both emotions the same way if you possibly can, in a controlled way. I think that's the best way for consistent success. So I said many times during Sandro's ban, he was the same every day, training well, very supportive of his teammates. There wasn't any massive outward show of emotion. And he's the same when he plays. The other night he was the same when he came in. He's sort of humble guy, wants to do a good job for the team and wants to help the team in any way that he can. But I know not secretly, but within himself, he'd be very happy that he contributed with the goals. And he's playing very well.
Do you think he's been aware of the noise that's surrounded him because of what he's been through, because of what he's achieving now? There's been, obviously in the media, follow the story, but fans as well, very invested in him. Do you think he's been aware of that?
I don't know. I think it's difficult to give a clear answer on that, because I think every player is different in what they surround themselves with. Social media, I've got no idea who's sort of active on social media, who's not, who absorbs information and who doesn't. But I do think Sandro will know the depth of love he has from the Newcastle supporters and everyone internally at the club. I don't think you can go into a game and not be aware of that, especially on match day with the chants that he has for his names, the flags that he's seen. So I'm sure he'll be very, very aware that everyone absolutely loves him and is delighted to see him playing at his best level.
We're getting close to January. I know you love the January transfer window questions, but
Absolutely.
how do you feel with the plan that the club has going forward to January? Do you think you're in a good place?
Yeah, it's been very, very loose discussions. There hasn't been many discussions in great depth on January, and that's because we've got a lot of games. Our focus is on the matches, and we're restricted to a degree on what we can and can't do. So I don't think that's our main focus at the moment. Certainly not mine anyway. But of course aware January's coming around the corner, and we'll need to be reactive and ready to do certain things, I'm sure.
And just finally from me, you met a Newcastle fan, Stephen Hunter, who has a terminal illness but was over the moon to meet you and to tell you to play Tonali. You'll have lots of interactions with fans, and I mean, this one was very special. What impact does that have on you?
A huge impact, yeah. I think I was delighted to welcome him to the press conference and to give him that experience. Then to meet him afterwards for the first time was an inspiring moment for me, because you see someone in such high spirits, so passionate about the football club. Obviously, the football club's important for him, a really difficult time in his life. So to be able to give him that escape and to bring him closer to one of his big passions in his life was an amazing thing to be able to do. And then for him to tell me to play Tonali, which I did, and for Sandro to score the 2 goals and win us the game was a great moment. And it was nice to find him in the crowd and just share a quick moment at the end of the game.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nisha. Lee Ryder, and then we'll go to Gary at the back.
Morning, Eddie. Miguel Almiron, his sort of situation, I know he hasn't had much game time this season, and there's been a lot of talk about he could go. Could you just give us a sort of flavour of where he is at the minute?
Yeah, Miggy's still absolutely Miggy in every way, and I mean that as an absolute compliment. Smiley, happy, focused, professional, unbelievable guy, Miggy. And I can't praise his professionalism enough this season, in which has been a difficult season for him because he hasn't had the minutes that he would have wanted. But he's never let that show in everything that he's delivered for us, and I know he's ready to play if needed. And I think again the other night when he came on, I thought he showed his qualities. Never doubted his qualities for a second. Yes, there's been a lot of speculation now over Miggy's future for a while, and I think all I'd ever say to any player that's contracted here and absolutely loved like Miggy is, my only focus is on Miggy being here and showing him the respect that he's deserved for his contribution to Newcastle.
And obviously you can't mention names, but there's been sort of a lot of transfer stories in the word closing in, and Newcastle are very close to doing a deal. Is that something that surprises you when you hear that?
On an incoming, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it does, because that's not the reality. So, no, we're not close to sealing any transfer or closing in on any player. For me, as I said earlier, the discussions on January have been very loose, because we know we're in a position where we're restricted to what we can and can't do. So, for me, the focus is purely on the moment at on coaching the team.
And this game, it's got kind of the same sort of build up to it, to the Luton game last year just before Christmas, which obviously didn't go well, and Ipswich will be desperate to welcome a big team like Newcastle coming down. How do you sort of get the mentality right for this game and avoid what happened at Luton last Christmas?
Yeah, that's interesting you bring that up, because we were looking back to last year and discussing certain games around this period. It's actually a difficult moment for us this time last year. I don't know. I think you can build it up too much in respect of the mentality for the players. The mentality for the players should be the same every game, regardless of our opponent. We just need our players to play, I think, with freedom, with expression. Of course, they need to approach the game in the right way. That goes without saying. And if you don't at any opponent, you can be beaten. But I think the lads are in a good moment. We want to try and roll that into the next game, and for us to be at our best.
Thanks, Lee. Gary?
Are you ready?
Hi.
Just going back to Sandro, obviously he got 2 goals the other night. How important is it for him and the other lads in midfield to sort of take, we know how good Alexander Isak is, but just help take that scoring burden off him, especially with Callum being injured?
Yeah, it's really important. I think when you look at our midfield, I mean, not necessarily the expectation on the 6, to be honest, for goals, but more from the 8s. The 8s are consistently in the box. They have to create and try and score goals. So there's a bigger onus on them, really, to produce goals and assists. And it's been an area where we haven't been at our fluent best, I think, this season in terms of those numbers. So it's great to see a midfielder contribute. I mean, Sandro scored 2, one from a set play, one from a long-range strike, and they're like so important for us, those moments, those goals, because they're almost bonus goals. That's how I view it. But we need those players contributing. It was good to see, again, albeit from a sort of a second phase set play, Bruno get an assist and a goal from a centre-half as well in Fabi, because he's popped up with 2 important contributions. So goals from everywhere is what we encourage.
Kind of already touched on my next question now. I was going to say, it's not only the midfield, there's obviously Fabian Schär, another goal for him. He's on 4. I think is that his 3rd top scorer for you this season. I remember hearing an interview years ago with Neil Warner, where he said he set a target every year. He wanted his centre-halves to be getting at least 6-7 goals a season, taking mindset pieces and stuff. Do you have any targets similar to that you can share with us?
Yeah, I remember one year I scored 5, and the next season I set a target of 10, and I think I got 1. So maybe target setting isn't the the best idea. I know the centre halves take that side of their game really seriously. I know Dan's obviously a huge present for us in both boxes, and I know he wants to score more. And they regularly work on different aspects of their game in terms of goal scoring, the centre backs, because set plays are so important, and we've done well in that respect in recent weeks. But I don't know whether focusing too much on that target is a wise thing. As I said, it's more, I think, the practice and repetition, and I think if you can get that right, they will score goals.
Just last one from me. We spoke to Dan after the game the other night, and he looked back to 2 years ago, and obviously still got the semi-final to get through, but he just touched on how maybe they got caught in the emotion of that whole thing 2 years ago. How do you stop the players from getting too involved? It's an emotional club, isn't it? You know, the fans, very emotional. How do you stop the players from getting involved?
I think it's difficult for me to stop the players, because I think, as you say, it's a very emotional club, and I mean that for the positive, not for the negative. I don't know how you can blank certain things out the players will experience building up to a big game. And almost in some senses, I think when you're here for a period of time, I think you get used to that and you understand it a bit more. I think we were emotional going into the semi-finals, and even the quarter-final that year was a highly emotional game, but it served us well. The final was the final. We didn't quite get a few things right on the day, but hopefully we can learn from that. But I think any talk of the final is a long, long way off. Two games against Arsenal to focus on.
Thanks, Gary. Go to Rebecca, Jordan, and then Dominic.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Talked before about how Ipswich are really competitive. Do you think they've been unfortunate not to get more points this season, and where do you kind of assess their biggest threats for tomorrow's game?
Yeah, I think definitely you'd say they've been very unfortunate in certain games not to have picked up more points. But it swings and roundabouts. I think they picked up a great win last week against Wolves in the last seconds of the game. So these things do tend to even themselves out. One thing I will say, they've got unbelievable spirit. You can see that within the group. A never say die attitude. So they're great qualities to possess. And we know going into the game that we've got to match all the intensity and the desire that they will bring to the game. Their biggest strengths, I think, without a doubt, they've got some very good attacking players. They missed a lap through suspension. He's done very well for them this season, but with Hutchinson, Schmodix. They've got some really good attackers that we've played against before and we're very aware of. Leif Davis is a real attacking threat from left back with his assist record last year, which was incredible. So we're well aware of their threats.
And as well, on Wednesday, Will Sula came on towards the end and made a brief appearance. Just how important is it for him to get minutes in the senior side, but also experience those kind of big cup competitions and games as well?
Yeah, it's been really nice to be able to bring him on in recent weeks. Yes, of course, he needs minutes to develop around the training that he's doing. He's working incredibly hard in his training as well. So I thought there were some really bright spots in his game. A chance late on, really good pace and strength to run in behind. So hopefully we can continue to get him on the pitch.
Thank you. Jordan?
Morning, just on January, what would it take for Newcastle to actually go out and sign a player? What would you have to do? Because it seems quite a complex window in many cases, financial situation and it being January in general.
Yeah, well, I think everything's got to align. I think there's got to be a lot of things that come together for us to do that. I've said many times it's not through the lack of desire or want from me and everyone connected with the club to do that. But it's got to be right, and it's got to be right not just for the here and now, but for the future as well. So we've got to be responsible to make sure that any decision we make doesn't affect us in future windows as well.
And Lee touched upon the speculation around players like Martin Dubravka. Now there's been a lot of noises from Saudi Arabia, potentially him going there. What is the situation with him? Because he is out of contract at the end of the season as well.
Yeah, I'd say the same with everyone that's being linked with moves. It's not something that, of course, that I want to see or to read about or for the players to read about. Everyone that is contracted to us is our player, and I want their focus to be on playing well for us for as long as they're here, and that would be the same for anyone who's even not linked with moves. We have so many big games to come. We need everyone focused on what they're doing in the here and now.
And you said after the game on Wednesday you wouldn't want to lose anyone in January, but is there a possibility that someone could go?
Well, there's always a possibility. I never sit here now and say, well, no one will leave. But it's got to be in conjunction with what we need from the team's perspective. And again, always battling and balancing the long-term future of the club. So hopefully we won't lose anybody that we don't want to lose.
Thanks, John. Dominic and then Kieran.
Morning, Eddie. Just on the subject of contracts, you've got Fabian Schär, Sean Longstaff, both recently made 200 appearances for the club.
Yeah.
Understood to be out of contract at the end of the season. Is that still the case, and is there any update on their situations?
I think, well, we'll give you news on those things as and when things happen. I think we've got important players that are out of contract that we want to try and tie down to new contracts. But yeah, we'll give you the news when we have it.
Yeah, and in terms of contracts, transfers, you have to act in the best interest of the club. Players will have, understandably, their own agendas. You spoke about that balance. How difficult is it to find that?
Yeah, of course, because I'm speaking on behalf of the club here, and that's our wants, but obviously the players have their own wants and needs, and you totally respect and understand that, because it's a short career. Players have to be happy in their environment. They have to be absolutely content that we're trying to provide the right things for them in their careers, and they're getting their wants and needs satisfied. It's always a two-way thing. We've got a really good group of professionals who are very, very professional and diligent, and I can't speak highly enough of everybody really connected with the club at the moment. But of course, we'll always speak with players individually and try and find the right solutions if they're not happy.
You spoke about being reactive in January. In terms of targets, are there any there? It's just a case of potentially waiting for a green light?
We'll always have targets. We'll always have things bubbling along in the background. The recruitment team will be doing a lot of work, of course, in preparation for potential opportunities that arise. But I think at the moment that's not sort of the main body of our work.
Thanks. Kieran?
Morning.
Morning.
Two of Sir Bobby's former clubs in Newcastle and Ipswich facing each other. How inspiring is his legacy for you? Does that drive you on every day?
Yeah, it's not lost on me, the relationship that Sir Bobby Robson had with Ipswich. I think sometimes doing a little bit more digging into the history that he had there, it can surprise you, the length of time that he served there as manager. I was caught a little bit by that. Of course, he has a stand named after him there, and to have that sort of relationship with two clubs is very unique, and it shows what a man and what a manager he was. So, yeah, I'm aware of that connection, and we want to try and do his legacy proud at the weekend.
And you often use the phrase right player when it comes to transfers. What would that look like in January?
Well, the right player obviously is the right position, the right cost. So much goes into it. You could reel off 20 things that make the right player. But ultimately, if you're not necessarily actively in the market, the right player almost becomes redundant, because it's, as I said many times, it's what we can do, not what we want to do.
Thanks, Kieran. Simon?
Hi, Eddie. Building a team that works is often about relationships and chemistry between players. That seemed to be improving between Bruno and Tonali. How has that happened? Do they get on? And are they mates off the pitch? And how are they working together as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, they've always been friends off the pitch. Yeah. I think from very early on, I think Bruno and Sandro hit a connection together. But it's not just about those two players. I know why people do focus on them, but it's not about just those two players. To create a midfield dynamic that works, we play with three midfielders the majority of the time. So there is a third one in there that has to work as well. I think it's something that we'll never stop having to try and find solutions to from my side. Whether it's Sandro, Bruno, whether it's other areas of the team, you're always looking at who plays better with certain players and trying to find the right chemistry. Sometimes the chemistry you can't really describe, but it just happens. And I think it's happened or happening on the pitch between our midfield. I think it's looked really good in recent weeks. There's a lot of rotation and it's not as just simple as one player and playing one position and one player playing the other. And sometimes that can only come from playing games together. That relationship building comes from the matches. Of course, we didn't have Sandro for so long in that respect. It was very difficult to, I think, form those relationships in just training alone.